The rain had been falling since morning, turning the streets into mirrors of gray sadness. Daniel held his daughter Lily's small hand tightly as they walked past the closed shops and flickering streetlights. Lily was only 6, but her eyes carried questions far older than her years. Ahead of them, under the broken shelter of a bus stop, a tired woman sat with 2 children pressed close to her. Their clothes were thin, their shoes soaked. As Daniel passed, Lily slowed down, staring at the family with wide eyes. Her grip on her father's hand tightened, and her voice trembled softly, barely louder than the rain. "Papa," Lily whispered, her lips quivering as she looked back at the woman and her children, "why are they sitting there in the rain?" Daniel stopped walking. He followed Lily's gaze and felt something heavy press against his chest. The woman's face was pale, her eyes empty but watchful, like someone used to being ignored. Daniel swallowed, searching for an answer simple enough for a child but honest enough to matter. Before he could speak, Lily asked another question, one that would echo in his mind long after this night ended. "Are we bad people, Mama?" Lily asked suddenly, turning not to Daniel but to the woman sitting at the bus stop. The words were innocent, unfiltered, and devastating. The woman blinked in surprise, clearly not expecting to be spoken to. Daniel felt his heart pound as he realized Lily wasn't accusing, she was afraid. Afraid that walking past without helping meant something terrible about who they were. Daniel knelt beside Lily, rain soaking his jacket, and gently placed his hands on her shoulders, trying to steady both of them. "No, sweetheart," Daniel said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "We are not bad people." But even as he said it, he felt unsure. Was kindness something you felt, or something you did? The woman watched them closely now, her children silent, their eyes following every movement. Daniel noticed how the youngest child shivered, lips slightly blue from the cold. Memories he had buried long ago began to rise, nights when he himself had no one to help, when the world felt just as cold. Daniel had been a single father for 3 years, ever since Lily's mother passed away unexpectedly. Life had not been easy. Every meal, every bill, every bedtime story was a quiet battle he fought alone. There were times he had skipped meals so Lily wouldn't notice money was tight. He knew what it felt like to be one bad day away from everything falling apart. Looking at the woman at the bus stop, he didn't see failure. He saw survival. And suddenly, Lily's question felt less like innocence and more like a challenge. The woman finally spoke, her voice barely audible over the rain. "You don't need to stop for us," she said quickly, embarrassment flashing across her face. "We'll be fine." Daniel shook his head gently. "No one should have to be fine like this," he replied. Lily stepped forward without fear and held out the small biscuit she'd been saving in her pocket. The woman's eyes filled with tears as she watched her own children stare at the food like it was something magical. Daniel felt something shift inside him. He pulled out his phone and checked his bank balance. It wasn't much, barely enough to last the week. But he remembered something his own father once said, "You never regret helping, only not helping." Daniel took a breath and made a decision that scared him more than the rain. He asked the woman where they were going. She hesitated before answering, "Anywhere warm." That single word, warm, hit him harder than anything else that night. Daniel offered to take them to a small diner a few streets away. The woman resisted at first, pride fighting desperation, but Lily smiled at her and said, "It's warm there." Papa promised. That was enough. Inside the diner, steam rose from cups of tea, and the children's shivers slowly faded. Daniel watched as the woman's shoulders finally relaxed, as if she had been holding herself together for weeks without rest. Lily chatted happily with the children, unaware that her kindness was changing lives. As they ate, the woman shared her story. Her name was Maria. She had lost her job after falling ill, then lost her apartment when she couldn't pay rent. Family had turned away, friends had disappeared, and the streets had welcomed her with cruelty. Daniel listened without interrupting, feeling a familiar ache. He saw how easily this could have been him and Lily if life had tilted slightly differently. When Maria finished speaking, Daniel didn't pity her, he respected her strength. After the meal, Daniel quietly paid the bill and then did something unexpected. He gave Maria his contact number and offered to help her find a shelter and job resources through a community group he knew. Maria broke down, tears flowing freely now, not from shame but relief. "Why would you help us?" she asked. Daniel looked at Lily, who was laughing with the other children, and answered honestly, because my daughter reminded me who I want to be. Outside, the rain had softened to a gentle drizzle. Maria hugged Lily tightly, whispering thank you over and over. Lily hugged back without hesitation. As Daniel watched them, he realized that kindness wasn't something you taught through words alone. It was something children learned by watching. Lily hadn't learned generosity from books or lectures, she had learned it from living through hardship and still choosing empathy. On the walk home, Lily was quiet, her small steps splashing through puddles. Daniel wondered if the night had been too heavy for her. Suddenly, she looked up at him and smiled. "Papa," she said, "we're good people, right?" Daniel stopped and knelt again, meeting her eyes. This time, he was sure of his answer. "Yes," he said firmly. "Because we didn't walk away." That night, as Lily slept, Daniel lay awake thinking about how close they all were to the edge. He thought about Maria and her children, about the thousands of people invisible to the world every day. He understood something new. Helping wasn't about having extra, it was about sharing what little you had when it mattered most. Lily's question had changed him. It had turned an ordinary rainy evening into a moment that defined who he was. Weeks later, Daniel received a message from Maria. She had found temporary housing and a part-time job. The children were back in school. Daniel stared at the message for a long time, feeling a warmth that no amount of money could buy. When he showed Lily, she clapped her hands and said, "See, Papa. Helping works." Daniel smiled, knowing that his daughter had taught him a lesson he would carry forever. Sometimes, the world doesn't change because of grand actions, but because of small voices asking honest questions. "Are we bad people, Mama?" Wasn't just a child's curiosity, it was a mirror held up to the soul. Daniel learned that night that being a good person isn't about comfort or safety. It's about stopping when it's easier to walk away. And because he stopped, 4 lives found warmth, hope, and a future again.